Hello and welcome to our Lakeside chat. We are David Wofford and Katie Noonan, co-chairs of the Rotary Nature Center Friends. And we're so happy that you can join us tonight.
As we begin our program, it is important for us to acknowledge that we are on stolen land, that Lake Merritt is part of Ohlone territory. We hear now from Corinna Gould, spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn and co-founder of Segura Te Land Trust.
Good afternoon, relatives. My name is Corinna Gould. I am the spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn. We are here today at what most folks think of as Lake Merritt. We are in the territory of Huichin. Huichin is actually a territory that encompasses 6 Bay Area cities: Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, Emeryville, Albany, and Piedmont. And this was a place of abundance. I'm so happy that people from all walks of life that now come into our territory can enjoy this beautiful place that my ancestors have enjoyed since the beginning of time. My relationship to the land that I have been born to, raising my children and grandchildren here, has been to tell the story, the truth of what happened on this land before other people came here. I'm hoping that as we begin to learn these lessons of fires in California, the pandemic that's happening, that human beings come back to living in reciprocity with the earth.
Thank you so much, Corinna. Never a more apt message and for us today, as we are affected by so many changes in weather and in our relationship with the land. And so today I want to welcome everybody, and I see that we're here to share our home movies of Lake Merritt Underwater. And I'm going to be introducing Adrian Cotter in a few minutes, who will lead the way on some fascinating explorations of underwater scenes in Lake Merritt over the last several years. And hi, Adrian, good to see you. As we begin, I would like to share some of the, so to speak, baby pictures of the underwater exploration of Lake Merritt. And so I am going to share with you some of the early, from my point of view, photos and underwater photography that was done 10 years ago by community scientists at Lake Merritt. Okay, so ROV exploration has been at Lake Merritt possibly longer than I am aware of, but for me, it began around 2014 with the development of the open ROV. And you'll excuse me for just a quick minute. I need to excuse me. Okay, so anyway, beginning again. So ROV exploration comes to Lake Merritt. 10 years of community science have occurred through this this underwater surveillance that we have done. We're going to think about seasons, climate, and the catastrophes that have affected our lake over this period of time, and then find out what's down there now. So that's the plan. Okay. Hey, Bob, could you turn off your audio, honey? I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of extra noise. Okay, all right. Okay, so this collection of underwater videos really began with community science and public education partnering. So we're going to span 10 years of underwater observation, and I'd like to share with you some of the photos and some of the pictures of the young people who were involved in creating underwater robotic vehicles to explore Lake Merritt. So it began with a visionary startup company, Open ROV, back in the early teens, and they reached out to local enthusiasts with the opportunity to build a underwater robotic vehicle that would take high quality video, record it, and be able to share it. So I was able to connect with the co-founders, Eric Stackpole and David Lang. They came into my classroom at Oakland High School for many years, many hours, over 3 years, and we built ROVs. And here's some photos of the students at work. They were invited out to the workshop and worked on their ROV with the engineers and scientists at Open ROV in Berkeley. And then when the Trident ROV, which is the one that we're going to be seeing most of our video from today, when that became available and it was presented at the Berkeley location, we came out to watch that. At the same time, Adrian Cotter, who is going to be speaking tonight, was also building an Open ROV underwater robotic vehicle. And this allowed us to partner together with a National Geographic initiative, with the Science Exploration Education Initiative, to receive a Trident ROV. And so we applied together and received this Trident ROV. However, before that happened, oh no, here we are. Before that happened, I would like to share with you a video that was taken in 2014, the earliest of our video clips.
Do, which is if you push the yellow or green buttons,
one of the first,
you can see the camera moves up and down.
Operators go out on Lake Merritt.
So if we had like a robot arm or a payload or something like that, we could mount that down here.
Of kids being able to,
yeah, and you guys can see what it sees, right?
Oh my God, there's a hideous monster. Oh, wait,
this underwater instrument. Last thing that I want to share with you is the video that was taken by this the students and with the ROV. So this is a picture of the bottom of Lake Merritt over at the entrance to the Lake Merritt Channel. One thing we can see is that the water is not so clear, but as we get closer to the sediment, we can see that it is possible to discern a lot of life down there. This was taken in early May of 2014. And I'm very curious because Adrian is going to show us the same location. We're seeing here sponges. You can see the sponges, anemones, and different colored seaweeds. And right there, we see a crab, a decorator crab, Pyromia tuberculata, right there, raising its hand and waving at us. So it will be interesting to see what Adrian found down there. Okay, so here we see St. Paul's School, and they're out on the pontoon boats. One of the very cool things that Lake Merritt offered was by the Lake Merritt Boating Center. They were very gracious and would allow us to schedule boats to go out into the middle of Lake Merritt and operate the ROV. So we have quite a bit of early footage from the lake during this period of time, 2019, 2018 even. We were able to see the lake center bottom, the bottom of the Glen Echo arm, which everyone has focused a great deal of attention on these days. And so it was a very wonderful program and gives us a bank of video to compare things with. I would like to also introduce and thank the Team Oakland students. These are work with the Oakland Public Works and Oakland Parks Recreation and Youth Development and the Youth Employment Partnership. And they came out and operated the ROV, and we have video that they took from 2018 looking at the bottom of Lake Merritt. So it's really great to have that. Here we have New Voices Are Rising externs who came out last summer and did some exploration with Adrian. And finally, I would like to acknowledge and thank the Achieve volunteers who come and clean the lake every weekend and also are eager to learn about the lake. So they operated the open ROV, they've operated the Trident in the channel. And so Adrian is going to show you a number of videos that he's taken in the vicinity of the channel in a short while. Okay, so parallel to exploration of the visual exploration of the lake, we are interested in the dissolved oxygen situation, especially since in the summer of 2022, there was a catastrophic fish kill in which oxygen dropped to zero, top and bottom, throughout the lake, indicated here by the black squares, top and bottom. And at the bottom here, we see a similar Lake Merritt map showing that on February 24th, just a short while ago, the situation was quite different, but we do have an area of concern up here in the Glen Echo arm, right near Grand and Harrison. It's wonderful that we are getting so much information. The city of Oakland has installed infrastructure and shared that with the public on portals, and as never before has Lake Merritt been studied in such great detail. So very excited about that. So what might we find? Here in 2015, we found a lot of seaweed. You can see a lot of seaweed. These are mostly dead man's fingers. And then one of the things that we found with the ROV was it would sometimes unintentionally pick up samples. As you see here, the seaweed got caught in the motors and could be pulled out and looked at. So here we see Adrian on the launch of the Lake Merritt Lake Merritt Rowing Club, which has been very generous in getting us out with the ROV and with the dissolved oxygen monitors to keep an eye on the lake in different parts. And so we were able to pull some stuff up from the bottom, and I'm going to leave that to Adrian to lead us into that story and share the all of the findings that he has been able to gather, all the beautiful footage. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point and introduce Adrian. Adrian, are you there? Adrian has been a naturalist and an enthusiast at Lake Merritt for as long as I've known him, which has been at least 10 years and more. And he's works for the Sierra Club and is interested in nature, languages, culture. So we're really lucky to have him and his interest in Lake Merritt. And I wanted to say that, as I mentioned, both of us were co-recipients of the Trident ROV back in 2019. And in the first part of the period right after that, we were able to take the ROV out with boats of students and groups of students before the pandemic. But then after the pandemic, that was less possible, but Adrian kept on with his curiosity and his growing expertise in using the ROV. And so I think he's the perfect person to take this story to the next level up to the present day. So Adrian, are you ready to take the floor?
I am. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Appreciate the intro. I've learned a lot about the lake from Katie over the years. Before I share anything, I just wanted to show the tools a little bit more. So this is the original Open ROV rover. So it has this circular cylinder with the camera, and it was powered by these batteries that went into these tubes. I got mine in the water. It was really difficult to use and broke down a lot, but it was the funnest model I've ever built. I got these because I want when I moved to Oakland, it felt like there was a flowering of naturalists, primarily because of an organization called Nerds for Nature, who started doing community bioblitzes, and they did one in Lake Merritt in 2013, I believe, which I didn't go to, but I heard about. They had one of these ROVs there, so I was kind of excited about it. And then I was on a butterfly walk in San Francisco doing a butterfly count, and I ran into David Lang, who was doing from Open ROV, who got me one of these. And then I met Katie after that. One other tool I built this last year just to do some fun exploration was close-up exploration, was building this tube that I could put my cell phone down and get close-ups of the dock fouling, which is, we can do that with the ROV, but this gets slightly better footage. This one's kind of busted now, so I have to figure out how to rebuild it. I'll show one piece of that. And then this is our main tool, which is the Trident. So this is the main camera at the front. It has lights. It has 3 motors, 2 in the back for forward and back, left, right, and then one vertical motor. The challenge of driving a rover is really because it's attached to a tether. So we can't drive a rover without a tether. So unlike a drone, we can't run Wi-Fi through the water. But so that means we're limited in distance to whatever wire length we have. And it also affects like how you drive as well. You can get dragged around if you don't have enough line out, or it can get caught on things, and a whole slew of things like that. And we can drive it with a number of things. This is the one that came with the kit originally, which is a Android tablet with a gaming console around it. But you can use an iPhone. You can use another Android tablet. All right. Well, I'm going to start sharing my screen. But of course, I didn't have the rover right away when I moved to Oakland in 2013. But I quickly fell in love with the lake. And like I started going around the lake a lot, taking lots of pictures. So this is like 2 years of pictures. And one view of this is that the lake surface looks all the same. There's nothing very different underneath it. But just looking at the surface, you can tell like there's all sorts of interesting things going on just at the surface, with wind patterns and little paths that shape through. And then not to mention all the birds. And standing at this location is, as anyone who might know the lake, this is at the mouth where the channel is. And sometimes if you look down, you might see fish or bat rays. So I pretty quickly became interested in what was beneath the surface. But as Katie mentions, the the fish kill, I feel like in a lot of ways, like my experience of the lake is a little bit similar to my experience with the pandemic. Like I talk about things that are pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and with the lake, I think of a lot of things now in terms of like pre the fish kill and after the fish kill. And of course, it wasn't just the fish, it wasn't just the rays, but it was the crabs and mollusks and algae. So it's been interesting to watch in the couple years since then what has come back, what hasn't, what new things have shown up, and that's the joy of this project. I think is this long-term looking at things and being able to like look back and forth across time and see how things have changed. So let's look at, sorry, before I go there, I want to just quickly show like where Katie showed a map. So here's the Lake Merritt. So we have done probably most of our dives around the sailboat house over here and down by the tide gates, which is at 7th Street or East 8th Avenue. And the reason for the tide gates is a really interesting area because a lot of things sort of get blocked there, so they end up circling around. And then I've done a little bit of work along Jack London and at the mouth. And oh yeah, so one last plug. So I'm sorry, I'm not using a presentation, so this might be a little slapdash a little bit. But mentioning the pedestrian bridge reminds me of like that I have these fancy tools, but like there's also a lot of stuff that you can see from the surface. And one of the most amazing things I saw was from the Embarcadero Bridge. These are bat rays. These are kind of 3 or 4 foot in diameter. And this was about 6 months before the fish kill. And sadly, I've only seen one since then, but I'm hoping that one day that this will be, again, a common experience. I had to be at the right tide, and the water was amazingly clear. But all these bat rays were circling around and hanging out with each other, clearly like looking for each other. And here's one with a little bit of scale. Here's a big geese swimming over them. So the Embarcadero Bridge is a fun place to go look for things at the mouth of the lake if you've never been down there. You don't always see things, depends a lot on the water clarity, but sometimes you do see big schools of fish, or in cases like this, hopefully in May, this coming May, we'll start to see more bat rays show up again. And then, here's I will show this to get it out of the way. This is my periscope tool. So this gets some really nice close-ups of the tunicates in a way that the rover can't quite achieve. You get to see things move a lot more. Have some barnacles coming in and out, and all sorts of things. I still need to figure out how to weigh the tool down so it's not so herky-jerky. And I apologize. A lot of these movies will have some jerkiness to them. It's just the nature of the camera and the difficulty of controlling things underwater.
Adrian, in this format, is there any way for you to enlarge that screen?
This one is a vertical shot. Let's see if I can. So this is dock filing. So this is right underneath where the two docks at the sailboat house. So all the docks underneath there have this sort of life beneath them. This kind of died off during the pandemic, but it has come back. It came back pretty quickly. You can see some barnacles wafting up there in that corner. And then just sometimes, so by the tide gates, if you look down into the water on the sidewalls, you can see odd little creatures. Like this is another decorator crab that Katie had shown earlier. Oops, sorry. That. Amongst the barnacles, I've seen nudibranchs and lots of fish just hanging out by this. This is also a good place to watch for cormorants fishing and seeing what they catch. All right, so that is what you can do with just your eyes. Also, binoculars also are great to use sometimes. If you look down into the water, you can see things that you can't see with your naked eye. You just need binoculars that have that are a little bit more close focusing maybe than others. But you can sometimes see worms and other interesting things that you might miss just looking at it with your eyeballs. So before I get to that fish, so this is by the tide gate. So one thing that we can talk about is how much things do change over time, and they change. I tend to think of them as I think Katie mentioned this earlier, seasons. So right now we're sort of in the wet season, so the water is fresher. There's more sediment in the water. Whereas in the summertime, the water tends to be clearer, tends to be more salty, and the life sort of shifts along with it. So bat rays only at least come up into the channel around I think like May through November. Some of the fish schools tend to be here more in the summer than they do in the winter time. So I always feel like April is kind of a time where I start to see anchovies and some of the smaller fish types show up. And gobies, which we'll see some later, these smaller fish that live along the bottom. I think they're year round, but it also feels like they're more in greater numbers in the summer. So I'm going to show you. We'll see some different landscapes. So I would say that like the most lush area tends to be the channel and at the mouth of the channel in terms of like the numbers of different algae that are there, the colors, the vibrancy of the scene. and that sort of fades out towards the center of the lake where it gets deeper. So I think it's probably related to how much sunlight is coming down, and maybe how the water, how quickly the water is moving, even perhaps. But I would say sunlight is probably a big factor. As a comparison, this is some docks outside in Jack London, and I would say there's probably like a little bit more different types of algae perhaps there. I did find in this dive, this was a fairly deep dive. I think I was down about 3 meters. There was somebody suggested that these things might be sea slug eggs. I thought they were algae at first, but there was all this interesting, probably sponges, and Katie would probably know better, actually. And there's lots of things that were living on the beams, on the dock poles.
Is this at Jack London?
This is at Jack London, yeah.
Wow, yeah. Really shows how important having a place to attach is. I mean, everything is totally on top of everything. We see that at Lake Merritt too.
Yeah. So there was a bit more. There was probably a bit more fish here around the dock pilings, and almost I ran into fish as I went up and down them. But we have seen a lot of fish underneath the dock pilings as well at the sailboat house. So I'm going to walk through some of that now. So this was actually this is at the tide gate. These are anchovies. This is actually not the Trident. I had an underwater camera, or a little camera that went underwater at that time, and I stuck it on a pole and I put it inside the tide gate to get these because there were a ton there. And so, like, the tide gate is often a great place to watch these fish because they will just like swim back and forth and in these big circle schools that are amazing, and then they will like scatter when something drops in the water, or if there's a shadow that crosses them. Just watching them react in school formations is really amazing.
Can you speak to what the anchovy are looking for? What brings them there?
I assume I have not read very much about the anchovy or what exactly it eats, but I assume it's all sorts of plankton that it's coming through. But they're probably also coming into estuaries for spawning purposes. Would be my guess as well. Katie, do you know anything more about?
Well, they do. They have special rakers inside of their mouths that strain out the plankton. So they basically are plankton eaters. But they do come in to spawn in shallower water. So probably Lake Merritt is pretty rich in plankton. And it would depend on the season that might influence their coming in too. But that's a good question. And they're really a fun fish for class dissection because it's specialized in their feeding. Sorry about the dog.
The one thing that you don't see very well in this video, but we might see a little bit later, is and partially because it was in a dark, it was actually in the tide gate tunnel. But when they open their mouths, there's a reflection that's very obvious and very different from the silver side, who's the other sort of top stump silver sides that are the other sort of schooling fish that we often see. This is the tide gates. I think this was kind of during the pandemic. They do regularly try to clean the tide gates. There's basically there'll be a slightly better picture of this a little bit later, but there's basically a grating that goes over the tide gates, which is mainly meant to catch trash. There's some widened portions at the bottom that allow fish through, but for a while the gates were amazingly overgrown with all this life, and this was a fun time to like look down from above, and especially with binoculars, you could see fish swimming through, and sometimes other crabs and things coming by. There was another time where it was like mostly mussels, and there were so many mussels that it was basically almost acting as a dam. So at some times when the tide was coming in, it would sort of end up pouring over the top because it couldn't squeeze through the cracks. So you see there's all sorts of anemones and different sorts of algae from both green and red. I feel like we don't see as many anemones quite since the fish kill. I feel like there used to be more on the docks by the sailboat house than there have been in the past couple of years. You will, if you go down into the channel where it's pretty shallow and often a bit like on a low tide day, you can often see them sort of at the bottom, but not in these big clusters like you have here. This one is underneath one of the docks by the sailboat house. You'll notice that there are lots of shells underneath here. These are all almost mussel shells, and they're also hanging from above. This is also pre fish kill, and then there's a ton of tunicates. And there's our first glimpse of a goby, that fish that's scattered, and we have a special guest here who is not happy with my presence, which is a European green crab, which is a highly invasive species that a little worrying to see, but I don't feel like it's exploded necessarily in numbers. I did see a documentary on it in the past couple of years, and made me a little bit worried, but I haven't seen the vast numbers that I saw in that video or in that documentary. This is back into the channel. This is a California halibut, which I was oftentimes I will say that when I'm driving this under the water, I can't really see very well what I'm looking at. Part of the problem is it's often good to be able to see where the rover is to be able to drive it, because it's especially in a place like the channel where there's a really strong current, it's hard to like really navigate just looking at things underwater. You don't have a lot of navigational points. But I saw this when I was driving, which was surprising in and of itself. So I was able to like try to like stay with it for a little while. And it's a little hard to tell, but you can probably, especially if you have a small screen, but the halibut was clearly watching the rover as I was coming by. So his little eyeball is checking me out. Sadly, I think this individual probably died in the fish kill. I think Damon Ty had a picture of a halibut on the beach that day. The fishermen would talk about. There used to be a lot of fishermen who would hang out on the tide gate and by the pedestrian bridge, who would be looking for straight bass mostly, but they would occasionally talk about catching a halibut. And it's probably, I think that I have seen it from the surface as well, but I think it was probably just one individual who lived there, and not like a whole bunch or anything. So this one is back to the sailboat house, one of the floating docks. There's a couple things in this video. There's the first guest is some shrimp. He's crawling out from the tunicate. And then the second guest is coming, which is a pipefish, which is one of my favorite fish. They're related to seahorses. The male seahorses are the ones, like with sea dragons, are the ones who carry the babies. And this was I think something that I didn't see while it happened, but something when I was reviewing the video I found. I had long wanted to get one of these on video, and so that when I was able to, it made me very super happy. Also, I just love being under the dock with the light and shining through these tunicates. It's really quite beautiful. And there's all these black shells over here. These are all mussels, which did not do well during the fish kill, and I don't feel like I've quite come back in the same numbers. Katie, is that your impression as well?
Yeah, definitely. We have not seen the bay mussels come back. Yeah, I think that that is something slow to happen. But we have seen them, but they are not, festooned like you can see here. There's just like festoons of those mussels, and we don't see that right now at the dock. But we do see some when we go out and do bioluses, which we are going to do one at the end of April. And anybody who's in the area would love to have your help. But looking at the dock and other habitats around the lake to see what's there, it would be yeah. I don't think they're back in any number, which would affect, of course, the attractiveness of Lake Merritt to some of the fish that like to eat them, like the bat rays.
So these, thank you, Katie. So these are top smelt silver sides. This is this is back to the tide gates. This is them swimming sort of back and forth along the tide gate. The tidal force can be so strong that if the trident gets caught in the flow, it just gets mashed against the gate. But sometimes if there's fish there, it's kind of fun just to keep it there and wait for the fish to come by. Because I don't know, they seem delightful to me. All right, so this one we are going to have a visitor. This is back underneath the sailboat house, or by the sailboat house. So this is striped bass, probably also a victim of the fish kill. This was the year before. We've seen the fish come by the sailboat house only occasionally. I think I actually did happen to see this one when I was driving the river. You can see it swimming around there. I think what I found is like the fish are actually pretty curious about the ROV. So I suspect he came, or they came to check me out. And even the little fish, they're definitely wary of the rover, but they will sort of come back around and circle the rover, so they won't just like flee. So here's this is in the channel again. I probably saw them here for, well, actually it's not true, but they would often sort of be in the this is the reason the fishermen were here, because there would often be like a gang of striped bass sort of hanging out in the tide, especially when it's a strong tide. So I got a couple lucky glimpses of them as I was there myself. And these are surf perch. This again is against the tide gates. These guys, they're maybe about the same, maybe a little bigger than the silver sides, but taller. Their schools aren't quite as big, and I haven't. I've only otherwise seen them sort of by underneath the Embarcadero Bridge. Done a couple dives there on a kayak. I don't think I've ever seen them in the lake proper. I don't know if they just come to just hang out by the tide gates and then go back out into the estuary, or maybe they do come into the lake and just don't spend any time there, or they just don't come to a place where you can see them. So these are the fish that I probably have seen most, which are little yellow gobies. And they often just dash about when they will definitely run away from the rover, but they're really almost invisible unless they move anyway. So you kind of have to look really hard for them. But especially in the summer, if you're walking along the lake, well, this is kind of pre-fish kill, but you could just like look down and see them just hanging out by the edge. And it feels like if you didn't quite look at them, they wouldn't run away. But if you did look at them, if you do stop and look at them, they'll all sort of scatter out of the way.
So I'm seeing a lot of fish kind of moving out of the vegetation down there. I'm curious if you saw some of that in your recent footage.
Yeah, I should get into that
later. That's okay. You can wait. These are beautiful. Oh, there goes something. Yes.
Yeah.
Ah.
I think I'm almost through this video anyway. Yeah. All right. So. So last Sunday, friend of Katie's brought us out on what's their rowing club called? I can't remember. You're on mute, Katie. Sorry.
Yeah. Dr. Constance Weyenmeyer, who is one of the coaches at the Lake Merritt Rowing Club, has been taking us out to do water testing and now to take a look at with the underwater vehicle. It's been very kind to provide that and to be involved in that research. Oh wow, look at that.
Okay.
What are
So
we
this
seeing?
is so we're this is in the Glen Echo arm of the lake, so kind of near Fairyland, between Fairyland and Snow Park, and this is the line up to a buoy. We're not actually entirely sure what that buoy's for, but I decided to follow this line down, which I was actually amazed I could do. So this is we're going about, it was about 3.5 meters deep, which is actually surprisingly deep. I didn't think the Glen Echo arm was that deep. Some of the later when we dived into near the center of the lake, it was actually shallower by a meter. So you can see there's definitely some stuff growing on the rope lead itself. You'll see like there's a lot of debris in the water, marine snow, which is probably a whole bunch of living and dead things in the water. Katie could maybe speak better to that. And we're getting to the bottom now, and you'll notice that we got fish, which were actually the only fish that we saw that day, but it was the deepest place. And on the anchor, which seems to have been pulled out of the ground,
Oh, no.
there was some tunicates, and maybe some other algae of some sort.
Oh, that is interesting. And I would like to add that the dissolved oxygen down there was pretty low. It was like 2.3 or something. It was below the 5 parts per million that is desirable as the EPA standard for dissolved oxygen in the lake. So interestingly, the fish were still there and seemed to be doing okay.
Yeah. This might be a snail. We will see a few of these later, but they were probably one of the bigger survivors of the fish kill. They at least were able to run away to get oxygen elsewhere that others couldn't. So you notice we'll see a couple other examples at the bottom. Here there's a lot of leaf debris amongst the mud. I'm not sure if these structures that stick out of the mud are anything related to life or if it's detritus from leaves, but it is a pretty common thing to see. So
there's a piece of trash. Yeah. So there are rooted plants. There's the that could be coming out, or maybe somebody else has another idea of what that could be. It would be great to get a sediment sample.
Yeah. So there's a snail actually. You can see him waving his
when was this video taken?
Just last Sunday.
So is that a eastern mud snail, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. They have been very successful after the fish kill, immediately after, and all through the year. They've been very numerous. Lots of eggs.
Yeah, on the day of in the days after the fish kill, they were kind of all along the shore by Fairyland. They seem to have moved in mass because I think I recall that they had some other way of getting oxygen and they didn't slowly get it from the water.
Yeah, the mud snails?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're able to breathe air basically. Also,
yeah. So I think they moved to one side of the lake where they were better protected.
Other very interesting thing that I just recently learned about them is that they can be very long-lived. They can live 5 or 6 years, and they can go down in the mud and bury themselves. So many of these species that live in Lake Merritt are adapted to an estuarine habitat, and they can survive periods of low oxygen one way or another. So, but then others not so much.
Katie, are the mud snails and other organisms leaving trails or
yes.
other perturbations in the ground, in the seafloor?
Yes. In fact, I was just going to talk about
perceptive. That. Absolutely, yes.
So if you, I don't know how well you can see from your screens, but you can see there are several like smoothed out areas. So I believe these are all probably the mud snail leaving tracks as they're going from one place to another. This is also in the Glen Echo, a little closer to the middle. There's a little bit of algae around. This is at a similar depth, pretty deep, but it felt like there was less debris. So maybe it's a little further away from the Glen Echo Creek mouth. But it's riven with these tracks. They're kind of like everywhere. The other thing I don't know is if there's a lot of holes here. Those could be clams buried underneath the mud. I don't have any. That would be another thing we could try to get a sample of. I don't know. So I feel like we don't really see a ton of trash in these deeper areas, but we will see some trash in a second. Katie, I noticed it's getting close to the 8 o'clock hour now. Do you want to pause?
Yes, thank you. Oh wow, this is so fascinating. Imagine 69 people glued to the picture of mud on the bottom of Lake Merritt. This is great. If you could, are you able to stay and share more after 8 o'clock?
Yep.
We are at the formal end of our program, and so I'd like to share some information and thank yous with everybody here tonight. I want to thank all of you for coming and hope that we see you in April when we have another Lakeside chat lined up that should be a fascinating Lakeside chat. Special thanks to Adrian, to the Rotary Nature Center Friends staff, to the Lake Merritt Rowing Club, of course, Lake Merritt Boating Center, the Achieve High School volunteers from Oakland, New Voices Are Rising fellows, and the Mr. DD Climate Action, California Climate Action Corps fellows, and all of the interested citizens of Oakland who care about Lake Merritt. Our Lakeside chats, yes, are rebroadcast every Sunday by KTOP Channel 10 TV, and you can go to the Oakland website to find out what is coming up in the current week. The first 2 Sundays of the month, from 6 to 7 p.m., they broadcast older programs from previous months, and then the current month's Lakeside Chat will follow that in the last 2 Sundays of the month. If you enjoy what we do, and with the involvement with local naturalists like Adrian, and of course the young people, involving them in using real tools and getting to know the science, please consider sending us a donation to support our work. In fact, if you wanted to earmark that for underwater exploration, we would make sure that for those funds did go to improving or to extending that opportunity to more young people in Oakland. I'd like to thank our producer, Rob Lamone, and for help with media, videos, and presentation. We're all learning here, and he is absolutely wonderful. We would like to thank the Frederick E. Hart Foundation for Educational Opportunity for providing funds for video productions and for their interest in all of our programs involving young people and getting to know the lake and to learn science and community engagement skills through our programs. Coming up, we have Lakeside Chat number 41 on March 5th, and we're going to be delighted to host Hillary Powers again. Hillary Powers has been covering the birds of Lake Merritt with a once a month, fourth Wednesday walk. She is a source of amazing knowledge, both about the birds that you will see on any one day, but also on how things have changed over the years, which is something I think all of us are interested in. The third Saturday cleanup will be on March 15th. We will be at Lake Merritt helping with stewarding the wildlife refuge by removing trash and also by taking care of the sailboat house restoration marsh area, pulling out invasives and watering and tending the natives that have been planted there. We would like to thank all of our volunteers, program participants, and partners for your participation in our programs tonight and throughout the year. We are Rotary Nature Center Friends, an all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit advocating for the Rotary Nature Center in Lakeside Park as an interpretive education and science center for all the people of Oakland, and as the stewards of the Lake Merritt Wildlife Refuge. So with that, we want to thank all of our generous donors in the past year, and we're excited to attend the State of the Estuary Conference coming up on March 12th and present some of the work that our students have done and community partners have done on posters in the poster session related to water quality throughout the year from the beginning of the pandemic of the fish kill year 2022 through the current time. Plankton, the kinds of plankton and that we are seeing in Lake Merritt, things related to plankton are always fascinating. And we'll be looking at, we'll have a poster related to the underwater video photography that Adrian and we and Rotary Nature Center Friends have been participating in with the Lake Merritt Underwater Observatory. So it should be a wonderful way to share what we do at Lake Merritt with the wider community of policymakers and naturalists and scientists interested in this, the state of the San Francisco Bay Estuary. So with that, I am going to close my screen and give my heartfelt appreciation to everyone who's here tonight. And we can continue now to talk about the underwater footage and how you can come out and participate in underwater exploration if you're interested, and also answer some questions. So we have some of our anybody actually can now unmute. This is our custom. After the end of the hour, we everybody unmutes, and you can raise a hand, please, to ask a question or make a comment. And then we will spotlight some of the questions that are in the chat. And before we jump into that, Adrian, did you want to share some more of the latest run of underwater videos? There's something that you didn't get to. I want to make sure that you have a chance to do that.
Sure.
Okay.
Or I mean, we can start answering questions too as I show stuff. I did want to correct the record. I think I was actually showing middle of the lake, that last screen.
Oh,
Not
that
as I said.
kind of desolate plain of
Yeah.
brown stuff. So interesting, because we have 2019 footage taken by, I believe, the St. Paul's group, or maybe the Team Oakland group, that shows a very similar scene down there. And I believe when we were there, we pulled up in the motors of the Trident. There was a glob of mud right down there. Do you remember that?
I don't really. I don't. I'm afraid.
Okay, I have a picture of it, and yeah.
Yeah, I would question whether it's actually, we don't. There's definitely signs that snails are there. There could be things. There's probably things lurking underneath the mud.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was talking to Kitty about this. It would be cool if we could have put some sort of structures down there that we could see if things would grow on, rather than. So you'll see this part of the water, it suddenly started to turn brown on the surface of the mud. So some sort of growth there. I don't know what it was. And then we start to see some algae come in. So it might just be that we're getting to a shallower point here. So I would suspect a lot of what kind of growth is here depends on how much sunlight is getting there, and so the clarity of the water, and then maybe oxygen and salinity all play a part. But you'll see here, the mud is very different from that just gray background. So it's not a uniform place. So there was a snail there, actually.
Oh yes,
there's two snails there.
Yeah, these are eastern mud snails. Yep. And they eat diatoms and things that live on the surface of the sediment. Also will eat worms, and they can also hunker down in burrows. So they're very adaptive, versatile organisms, which is probably why they have been able to invade from the East Coast and push out the native snail, the California horned snail, that used to be most common in Lake Merritt, that is not there now. Probably replace that.
So now we'll move to this is still from the boat, but we're close to the beach, near the parking lot by the sailboat house parking lot. So this was pretty shallow water. So this is all red algae. I want to say fireweed, but I can't. I don't think that's right.
It would be really interesting to have a survey of the plankton of Lake Merritt. So at that location, when we were there, the water was actually 2.5 meters. Where the that looks like a dead fish, doesn't it? Maybe not. Okay.
Kind of does, but I think it's a leaf actually.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, things can be deceptive there. Yeah, so it was, and the dissolved oxygen in that location was good. It was at 8 parts per million, well above 5.
It was interesting that the water clarity felt like it changed from place to place. So the middle of the lake, the water felt like a bit clearer, whereas here it's pretty murky.
Another thing that you can tell with the well, with the ROV, and this is something I've noticed with students, is it's they drive it into the bottom, and you can kind of see how much whether it sends up a big cloud of sediment from or of muck and mud from the top. So I'm not sure that we're seeing fresh duck poop there. To somebody's question earlier on, as if there was it was just a little bit of water and then a lot of duck poop. If there's duck poop there, it's being converted into algal mats. Right.
Or eaten by all the plankton, whatever. It's feeding all the nutrients for all the things in the water. So in this mud, you can sort of tell there are snail tracks there as well. You often see them sort of hanging out on top of weeds like this, algae like this. There is something in the nodules here, but it's hard to tell what they are.
Yeah, it would be fun to actually try to get some sampling on the next for the next bio boots, if we could somehow get a chunk of bottom to look at.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to look at trying to do that at the end of April. So we have some great questions here. Do you have to clean the ROV after you use it to minimize spreading anything in other areas that you use it in? Very good question, Anthony.
That's a good question. I mean, the main reason to clean it is because if I didn't, it would everything would rust and it would be an unusable hunk of metal. I've not actually really dove anywhere else, so the risk of bringing something somewhere else has been low for that reason. But basically, yes, like immediately try to clean it off with fresh water, dry it off, and then clean it off again later. Try to get any mud or any other sediment out of it as quickly as possible. It does tend up, so it can the motors can jam up. I feel like I've managed to not have that problem of late, so I think I'm doing something right. But it's been a little bit challenging. I'm actually really surprised we've managed to have this rover running for so long. I kind of thought it would be dead by now, but we've managed to keep it going.
Well engineered, really. Yeah. We've been so lucky. We do have we have one in reserve, and we really want to train more people on how to use it, and just waiting for that opportunity to come together. So we have another interesting question. We have one from Susan Porter, and we have one from Kathy, which I'm going to start with Kathy's because I think she asked us what dictates when they turn those two fountains on and off. I think I can speak to that. So there used to be two aeration fountains in the lake, one at Grand and Harrison, and the other one at the Columns colonnade. But they have not been running for quite a while. The one at the colonnades had a lot of problems because at low tide it would suck up mud and gunk from the bottom, which would get in the motors and kill the motors, and then cause very expensive repairs to be incurred. So that one has not been active for quite a while. The one at Grand and Harrison, though, has a very interesting story. It was removed just the day before they installed the new oxygenation system, which has been placed in the Glen Echo Arm by the City of Oakland and Lake Tech. And so that there is a oxygenation plan in action there at Grand and Harrison that we can't see. Where are we looking now? Is this at the 12th Street area?
Yeah. So yeah, near the pedestrian bridge.
Yeah.
So you'll see we're in shallow water, and there's definitely some trash.
Definitely some bagged trash, and I'm struck by how you know, it's doesn't look quite as rich as the one that was taken earlier in by the students in 2014. But that one was taken in May, and this one has been taken in February after a bunch of rain. So seeking a fair comparison of anything in Lake Merritt is just like very difficult. And then we have a question from Susan Porter, which I think is an interesting one. What % of the lake is a dead zone based on WGH? And help me out, Susan. Are you there? Can you help me out with the WGH? What are you referring to? Anybody else? I might just not be thinking clearly at this moment. So, WGH. Help us out. Well, I will get back to Susan about and find out what she means. But are you there, Susan? Whoop, the message coming.
Yes, I am here.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for unmuting. And yeah. So,
sorry.
What is your question exactly?
Well, what % of the bottom is a dead zone in the lake?
Well, that's a good question. I think we have to parse it a little bit. What do we mean by a dead zone?
Nothing alive.
Well, but in every photo, we've seen something alive.
Your photos are almost all in shallow areas.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
No, they're not. But you have one that goes down deep, and it's encouraging. I mean, it's you see snails down there and so on. But you only have maybe what 5% of the entire lake covered.
Oh, we're not.
What you need to do is put some removable bottom reefs down there that you pull up, every week or two and see what's growing. Put them back, in the same areas. Get about 2 dozen of those. And take the ROV and put it over near the oxygen device and see if
we were at the oxygen device. We went to the oxygen device, and we saw that's where one of the places is where we saw the fish. The other one we saw only decaying leaves. So again, there's trash. So really, getting my whole comment is that to find a fair comparison for anything is very difficult in the lake, and to make a statement about percentage that is a dead zone, I think we're just not anywhere near there. I think it would be fun to put those structures down, and I hope that we would be able to do some sediment sampling. Oh, there's a nice fresh leaf there for us. I hope we would be able to grab some of the bottom. Lots of great tunicates out there, but we have temporal change. We have spatial change. We have a ton of things that can impact anything. So I don't think we're at a point where we can discuss anything being a dead zone, because things can be down in the sediment that are waiting out a temporarily not opportune moment. And we haven't been everywhere. So how could we make such a calculation?
Can we? Yeah, but we need that information.
What?
Let me just ask, are we at a point where we can rest assured that there are existing dead zones, whether we can calculate or quantify them or not? Are we even at the point where we know that they exist?
It depends on what you mean by a dead zone. That's what I say.
Okay. Well, just a general light version that there's no oxygen there for whatever reason, and no fish are thriving there.
So by that definition, there are no places that have no oxygen continually, consistently that I have observed.
Okay.
However, there may be areas where oxygen is poorer, and that may influence the kinds of organisms that are there at any one time. But to me, as somebody who's been out on the lake quite a bit, it's variable. It's quite variable. And we're dealing with organisms that are estuarine organisms that are adapted to some of these conditions that occur in Lake Merritt. So I don't know. I think a dead zone is a kind of a loaded term that we don't have any quantitative or even comparable qualitative way to assess this moment.
But maybe I guess it was more a question of, are there areas of the lake that maybe seasonally, because in the wintertime there's less oxygen or whatever, where things will die off seasonally, not because it's their life cycle, but because there's not enough oxygen in that area at that time of year. I mean, are there areas that probably...
That's a hypothesis.
I mean,
that's a hypothesis, but how can we test it? Because things change so much.
Well, put monthly retrievable reefs down there, 5, 10, 20, 30 of them, and pull them up every month, and then, see what's on there and put them back.
That's a great idea.
It would be, and I'm not sure that the city of Oakland would be excited for us to do that, but we could certainly, I think it would be fun, or we could just, if we could just take a sample, because again, that would be more to the point of seeing what's growing on the actual structure that actually exists right there.
I think Katie and I would both.
Infrastructure has been put in by Lake Tech over the last year. It has become biofouled very quickly. Mostly that's, of course, at the top where most of the critters are, but just a lot of stuff grows when there's something in the lake. I think that would be interesting to see. I don't know where we could do that because, as you know, Dick, the tidal currents there can be rather strong and move things around a lot. I recall a large dumpster that made a journey from the Lake Merritt Boating Center parking lot out almost into the channel at one time. So there's just a lot of variables in there. And I would love to have a suitable dredge. I'm talking about like a little dredge that could go down and get a sample that we could go through and look at. That would be really fun. That would be, I think that would be a really great first step. And you've suggested using PVC pipe, and we can try that and see if we can get a good sample that way to look at. But to go from there to making, statements about dead zones and, percentages of the coverage of the lake, I think is premature without enough data.
We're going to need that information to determine when and where to dredge and how many oxygen devices to install. We're going to need that data.
Well, we are collecting data, and it would be great. I would think it would be really great to take some bottom samples and see what's in it. That would be great. Yeah. Ooh, that's cool.
Our students will love a process like that as well. And
I have one photo. David, do you remember that time? So one place where we do get pictures, we do get the algae harvester that comes and harvests algae out of the lake. And it's a great time when that thing comes up into the parking lot. You have lots of people that come out, lots of naturalists come out to paw through the algae. And each year, sometimes the kinds of algae are slightly different, and the numbers and the people who do it will say, oh, there were a lot of pipe fish this year, but last year, no, there weren't, And so you can tell a little bit by looking at that just common maintenance action and see what you get from that. But Lake Merritt is such a special lake with so many questions to be pursued.
Do you know if we covered the question in the chat about mussels and about whether or not
Thank you, David.
They mature and fall off, or do the other mussels have to grow under and around them?
Oh,
that was a question in the chat.
I would say that I think they fall off because below the docks is basically a big shell mound. So
it's a black zone. The barnacles are on the white zone. Mussels, the black zone. Below that, they don't grow.
I don't understand. Are you saying that for one way or another, they kind of mature and separate and then fall to the bottom?
Well,
I don't, I can't say that I probably shouldn't speak with any certainty about anything.
Okay.
I can only say that like below the docks are often dead like empty shells, like a pile of empty shells. So I assume like they eventually will fall off the place once they die. But I have not like read anything on that, so that would be a purely guess based on observation.
If they're
David,
all going,
are you wondering if they drop off and go somewhere else, or are you?
well, I think the part of the question was whether or not they drop off naturally or whether they get pushed off. But now it makes me wonder if they're all underwater and falling downwards, how is it that the birds get them and we find them all on the pathway and walkway?
Oh, they pick them off. They pick them off of the dock. And right now, for example, at this very moment, the salinity of Lake Merritt has gone way down because of all the rains. It was down like at 15 parts per thousand in the last survey that we did, whereas only a month before it was 25, even, you know, it was quite a bit more brackish. And this is something that people have noticed in San Francisco Bay and in Lake Merritt for decades, is that when we have these fresh spells where the water gets really fresh, that some of the mollusks cannot survive it, and they die. And then the birds come and pick them off and eat them.
Do they go underwater and pick them off?
Yeah, you'll see gulls basically plunge their head into the water to pick out shells.
I see. Thank you.
I believe the mussels just Googled. I think they use a foot to attach themselves to things. So I would assume like once they're dead, that foot eventually weakens and breaks. So
now there's also two questions about scuba divers in Lake Merritt. Two separate questions. One, basically, are there any scuba divers would it help to have scuba divers, and are there any scuba divers that visit the lake?
The only scuba divers.
Yeah, go ahead.
The scuba divers that I have seen are the ones who clean the tide gates, which they do probably a couple times a year. So they don't use scuba gear. They use a pump on from the land side. So it's like more like an old school diving helmet, so they're pumping in water from externally, presumably so they wouldn't get their tank caught in any machinery around the tide gate. I've never seen one in the lake itself. So I don't know if you've seen that before, Katie, but not sure any diver would want to go into the lake.
There was a movement to do that. That was many years ago, and then where did I see that? Maybe it was somebody scuba diving in San Leandro Creek or at the mouth of San Leandro Creek or something. So I mean, it's probably on YouTube if you want to look it up. I'd have to go try to find that. Maybe in the post chat notes, I could try to find that picture for you. I believe it has been done, but people fall in the lake when they're doing sailing lessons, and they gulp lake water, and they survive. It's salty water mostly, and it does have bacteria in it, but generally speaking, it's not as deadly as a lot of people might think. Not that I encourage drinking it. We had to. Lila asked a question about, did we have any? Do you have any pictures of birds feeding? And Lila has incredible pictures of birds feeding, and I hope she will be willing to share that with us for in the next chat. Because I don't think I have. I might have some. I know I have them on my computer, but I don't know if I could show them. Did you have something in mind that you wanted to point out about that, Lila? About the birds and cormorants and egrets feeding?
I will say that I have not managed to get any footage of it. I would love to. I've been trying to be a little bit cautious around the birds. Um, Most of them seem to be pretty wary of the machine because I think it's pretty loud. Although I've had a couple gulls come over and check it out, but I've never got good footage of them.
So we have another really good question here.
Jean made me laugh. She says in the chat that she's not afraid to fall into the lake anymore thanks to this conversation.
Yes. Okay, just while I'm scanning the chat, that I misspoke on the next chat date. It's actually April 5th, not March 5th. So I'll make sure everybody gets that in their post chat email as well. Okay, so there was some questions. Oh, are the fish that you get in Lake Merritt good to eat? And that's, Lake Merritt gets runoff from a very wide, what is it, 4,750 or something like that, acre watershed, and it comes off the street. So there's some bad stuff in the water that, so fish that live in the lake for a long time probably have incorporated some of that. But fish that come in from San Francisco Bay, maybe the striped bass, maybe the salmon that came in, might be, you should take a look. There are rules for what, who should eat what kind of fish. Like if you're a pregnant mother or a child, you should probably not eat it. But if you're another category, it might be okay to have one meal every month or something like that. You can look up that kind of information. Oh yes, James Irvin asked where are these ROV videos archived? Okay, so they're on the we have a Google Drive area for the underwater Lake Merritt Observatory, which has all of the videos that have been taken on it, and many of them have been uploaded to the YouTube channel, and possibly more will be coming. But if you have a specific question about one, or a suggestion about where we should deploy, then I know we've had some suggestion from Susan and others about where we should deploy the ROV. Please send either Adrian or me an email and see if we can do that. Adrian, what would you say to the archiving question? If somebody wanted to just peruse a lot of underwater footage.
Yeah, I would go to I just chatted the YouTube channel. If you just Google Lake Merritt Observatory, YouTube should take you there pretty quick. Probably missing a few more recent things, but yeah, it's a good sample of what we've seen under the lake so far.
Thanks. In regards to that question regarding whether or not the fish in Lake Merritt are okay to eat, which is a question that comes up often in Lakeside chat and in the community. As a environmental steward and a scientist and an educator, I would say that it's telling that each time the question comes up and we share our understandings and awareness about it, it's quite the same. Like we just heard tonight, that there are high levels of mercury in the bay, and the lake is connected to the bay, and those are the same fish, and it's probably not that great to eat them. And plus, we have the negative nutrients that flow from wastewater, overspill, etc., into the lake. And yet, each and every fisherman that I've polled over the years, as I walk around the lake or travel around the lake, is that fish good? Their response is yes, it is. And so it's telling in terms of the world we live in and how it is that we think about and experience the natural world. Because I don't know, those individuals, when they say that to me, they sound just as sure and convinced and having eaten it before as you do when you mentioned to me about the mercury and the other items. I just wanted to note that.
Yeah, well, there are different recommendations depending on like whether you're pregnant and things like that as well. If you ever want to have a really fun tour, this guy, the Sea Foragers Guide to Northern California, his name is Kirk Lombard. He does. I don't know if he still does them, but I think there's a couple other people who do it now. Sea foraging things where they show you how to catch crabs or use fish nets and things like that. And he talks when I took his class once, and he talks a lot about thinking about where the fish live. If they're like moving, as Katie was saying, they're sort of moving in and out of the bay. They're likely safer. If they're like long lived and staying in one place, it's maybe worse. But it's all a judgment call at the end of the day. But maybe you don't want to eat. You probably don't want to eat mussels out of Lake Merritt. I guess what I would suggest. Maybe.
Or yeah. Let's see. Oh. So keep the questions coming, and we will try to do some research to answer some of them that have come up, and would love to see some of you come out for the next Bio Blitz, which is the City Nature Challenge. I believe that's at the end of April, and hoping to get a lot of people out to survey life at Lake Merritt. We at Rotary Nature Center Friends, we've looked at fish, we've looked at plankton. I'd love to do some looking at the algae that is there, and it would be great to have an archive of that as well. So I'm looking through the chats. Are there any questions here? Did the bottom of the lake used to have more life then? And again, it's just very hard to know. If you were here for the trivia question, the Lake Merritt, before it was dammed, really 155 years ago, was actually a giant mud flat. It was very shallow and very broad. The kinds of living things that were in it were different from what we have in the lake now. And the numbers of species, it's hard to tell if there were more or less. A lot of things goes into the ecology that determines the numbers of species you find anywhere. So hard to tell.
So I see a couple of questions from Anthony. We haven't covered. Are some ROVs more sophisticated in taking samples? Obviously, like if you there's an amazing Instagram of some ROV that they take out into the deep ocean that has all sorts of sampling devices upon it. That's probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands. There are a few other sort of more retail kind of ROVs out there that are probably a little bit more sophisticated than the Trident now. I don't know that many of them necessarily have like sample taking ability. I don't know of any laws that govern our use. I think it's a little different from drones, which are a little bit more intrusive. It's probably something we should know, but I think I would probably be a little bit more cautious about running it in like a Federal Reserve or something on the coast. I wouldn't run it. I probably wouldn't run it in the reserved area where the birds are, for instance, in the winter. And no one has ever asked me to use it for searching for individuals underwater, but I imagine somebody has done that in the past. It's probably cheaper than scuba divers.
You use the term samples in the question of taking ROV taking samples. Does that also include data collection where you don't have to take anything away, but you experience the water, record the data, and then it can be reviewed later?
That's a great question. So one of the things that they do with submersibles and ROVs is to take a look at quadrats that you can put down and you can collect quantitative data that way, and then save it for later. So it's not out of the question what you're thinking. Okay, so some people were asking if you can scuba dive in Lake Merritt. If you can earlier. You mean earlier, did people used to do it? Or can you do it now?
I think we kind of covered that question earlier, Katie.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was Icy was asking everybody at 8:40, so he was not entirely. They asked earlier. Okay, so yeah. Okay.
All right, well, maybe I'll just show this one last video and
yes.
Call it a night.
Where are we?
This is from the mouth of the bay, or the mouth of the. So this is basically underneath the Embarcadero Bridge at the bottom of the Lake Merritt Channel. So we have, I think those are silver size. They might be. It might have been anchovies, but what was today? I kept getting buzzed by bat rays. You'll see them scooting by over and over.
Wow! Look at all those those are tunicates. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, different colored sponges. Definitely, very nice out there. And when was this taken? Recently?
This was early 2022.
Oh, okay.
I had a kayak out, and there goes the bat ray. That was the tail of a bat ray. I couldn't. It was very hard to follow them. So they swim much better than my my machine. There goes one.
Oh, beautiful! Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of hoping to see, like the amazing beauty of the bat rays underwater swimming. It's so cool. And here's a bunch of surf perches. They were just kind of chilling out, hanging out by me. But this other school of fish would never get very close.
Wow.
Wow is right. That's
that's beautiful. I'm sorry, David. Yeah.
I was saying the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how beautiful underwater landscapes can be. I really like the ones taken in Lake Merritt. In the middle of June, there's one that was taken that was just so beautiful. So many different colors, so much activity in life. Wow. Well, we're dwindling down, and I wanted to just to let you know, I want to share as a parting a video of one of our first ROV teams, the reunion team at Lake Merritt. Just a lot of folks enjoyed. Okay, a lot of people have enjoyed being there with the exploring with the ROV, and hopefully we can figure out ways to make this more of a common sense. So I'm going to give this a try as a final bye. We're going to go here and turn it on by getting rid of that. And yes, so this was actually during I believe it's 2019. There's Adrian in the background. You can see him way back there. He's got his rover out there in the water. And then we have students taking water quality and driving the Trident out there at the dock. I hope to see days like that come again, so that you know, we can make that an activity that people can share at Lake Merritt. So 5 new messages.
Great, Katie. Thank you. And thank you, Adrian. You know, I want to acknowledge the difference between sharing this information tonight at a Lakeside chat and looking at it from our perspective and thinking about it from our perspective versus our work day to day and week to week. Bringing, and thank you, Adrian, again, and thank you, Katie, again, bringing this activity and experience to the students that we deal with.
Yeah, I think it's always fun to
because it's very different of the ecosystem and the relationships between these organisms, the plankton, the microorganisms, etc., versus when we're dealing with students and just the joy, well, and the importance, I should say, of giving them this opportunity and this experience, albeit that they lack the connection and understanding that we carry here in this conversation. And that's just a really a great thing. So thank you guys, Katie and Adrian and everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the views.